All right, start in Flash by opening ActionScript 2.0, and I always like to enlarge my stage so I can see more of it. We are going to need to import to the library the two images, Photoshop images that we created. So I'm going to click Open. If you did not delete the layer that had the initial shape on it, you can uncheck that here so that all you have checked is the text, and then click OK. And then this one only had the one layer, so I can click OK there. Now you don't see it initially because I did import to library, but here they are. So I'm going to start by dragging the photo of me in, and it's very large, so I'm going to go to Properties, and I'm going to make sure that I have this locked so that when I type in a height, it automatically changes the width as well. And then I can move it to the center of my stage. And I'm going to label that layer me. And then I'm going to create a new layer. I'm going to go back to my library and I'm going to bring in this ring. And it's also too big, so I'm going to make it about 275 probably. I'll see if that works. And I'm going to position it so that, and actually the best thing to do would be to select both pieces and use your Align panel to align to the horizontal center. And I'm going to make sure that this is covering big enough to where you can see it, but small enough to where it's covering both parts. But the top is covering part of me and the bottom is covering part of me. Okay, now I know that I want this to last about 5 seconds. So my frame rate is 24 frames per second. If I multiply that by 5, I know that I can insert frames because nothing's actually going to happen on my layer. So I'm just going to insert frame instead of keyframe. So that's F5 here. Then here on layer 2, where the ring is, I'm going to go ahead and put a motion tween on it. Now it only does 1 second at a time, but I know I want this to last all the way out here as well. So I'm going to go ahead and F5 out there. And what I'm going to do is, because I'm not actually going to move this, I'm going to use my Properties panel. If I click here anywhere in the motion tween, I can look in my properties and choose rotation, and I can rotate it 1 time, and I can choose whether I want to do it clockwise or counterclockwise. Okay, and I have it go in the right direction. And so I can lock that layer and move on to the next step. Now, right now, this ring is just circling in front of me, but I want to give it the illusion that it is 3-dimensional, that part of it is going behind me. So since this is up here around my face, I want this to go behind me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate the layer called me, and I drug it to the new layer icon, and I'm going to move that to the top. Okay, and I am going to create one more layer, and this layer is going to be called mask. Now what I need to do is get a shape. So I'm just going to use a rectangle, and the colors are irrelevant, so I'm just going to leave them at whatever shows up. And I want to create a rectangle that is going to cover the area where the text goes over my head. Okay. Now, whether you draw the rectangle in merge or object drawing mode is irrelevant. And now what I'm going to do is control click on the layer, and notice I'm not doing it on the frames. I'm doing it over here on the layer name. I'm choosing to mask. Okay. And what that did is where that mask was, it hid the layer underneath it. Okay, so but by hiding that layer underneath, that text now goes behind it. So it looks like it's three-dimensional. Now, we're going to go ahead and create another layer, and I'm going to call this B. If you remember in the previous challenge, you created a graphic symbol of a B. So I'm going to choose to import, open external library. I'm going to have to find my Flash folder and the symbols.fla, and I'm going to hit open, and notice how it opens a library, and here I'm going to drag my B over, and then I can close my library. Mine's awfully large, so I'm going to use my transform tool to transform it. Remember that everything that we put a motion tween on has to be a symbol. The B is a graphic symbol. Because these were done in Photoshop, these are already imported as symbols also. Okay, so I'm going to start this B over here to the side, and now I'm going to use my pencil tool. And this time it is important that I do not have object drawing mode selected. I need to be in merge drawing mode. Okay, so it needs to be the light gray. And I'm going to start drawing a line from right here in the center of this B, and I'm going to do a little loop-de-loop, maybe even a couple of them, but I'm not going to get too fancy, because if you get too fancy, then sometimes the B can't follow this path. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to double click so that it selects all of that path, and I'm going to do a Command X to cut it. Now I'm going to put a motion tween on that B, and I'm going to control click and choose paste in place. Not just paste, but paste in place. All right, so now if I hit return, I can see that B following that path. The problem is this B is following the path backwards in some places. So what I need to do is I need to click here in the motion tween and go to the properties, and I can choose to check orient to path. Okay, now it's kind of floating around all wonky in some places. So here at the end, I'm going to use my transform tool to rotate it so that it's going the direction of the path there at the end. Then I'm going to go back here to frame 1 and do the same. And now it should follow it a little more precisely. There we go. Now, if we want this bee to just fly in front of us, we could be good. But since we have everything else looking three-dimensional, we should go ahead and do the same. Only I want the bee to fly in front of the face and then behind the body down here. So I'm going to create a new layer. Let me pull that back down. Create a new layer, and the first thing I'm going to do is get my rectangle tool, and I'm going to put it in object drawing mode. And this is important. And I'm going to draw a rectangle. Then I'm going to deselect, and I'm going to draw another rectangle, only this time it's going to be in merge drawing mode, so I'm going to take it off, and I'm going to change the color. Oh, obviously I didn't deselect. Now I think I deselected, and I have another color. I'm going to draw another one. Now, both of these rectangles are on this new layer, And you'll notice that even though I drew this one first, it shows up in front. And that's because drawing objects are always in front of a shape. That's the stacking order, the natural stacking order. So remember that what a mask does is whatever you cover with the mask, that's what shows through. So we want all of it covered except for this little piece that I put down on the body. So now what I need to do is I need to break this apart so it is also a shape. So I'm going to select it. I can either go to Modify, Break Apart, or Command B. Okay, and if I select it, I can hit Delete, and now I see a hole through this rectangle, and I see the bottom part where I want the bee to be behind me. And then I'm going to mask that layer again, and then test it. The bee goes in front of my face and behind me down at my knees. So now you've learned how to orient to path and create a path and orient to path with the bee. You've also learned how to do the rotation with a motion tween and give something a 3D effect. Let's go ahead and File, Save As, into your Flash folder, period, last name. Oops, I'm going to put my last name. And 3D. And actually, before you do anything else, let's create another layer down at the very bottom. Or better yet, instead of a new layer, let's just go into our Properties panel. If everything is deselected, you should see the stage properties here. We can change the stage background and give it a color that you're not already using. So I'm going to choose not that color. I'll choose that color. And I'll save again. And then I'm going to do my Shift Return. Oh, no, Command Return, sorry, so that I have a Swift file to upload to my Google site.